Good afternoon, all the Elim and FScan and all the users of our devices. I'm trying to do a retake of last night because we had a problem with the Wi-Fi. And then I'll publish it on YouTube and send you the link, and you can have a look at it again. I'm sorry about everything. I felt terrible, but there's nothing that we can do. If technology fails you stuck. So let's start with, this is advanced lesson number 15. It's our last lesson in this series. So let me just share my screen and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so it's advanced lesson 15 and it's about the endocannabinoid system. Difficult word, so try to say it. Endocannabinoid system. Right, so this is the most important system. You ask, what is this all about? Cannabis or what? Okay, so let's have a look at it from another perspective. So what is the main thing, the question that I ask, what is the main thing that we do when we do an Elim test? We actually measure our brain waves, and our brain waves, we know, communicates through our nervous system and through all the hormones and the neurotransmitters to all the systems and organs in the body. So as we know, there are 4 types of brain waves, namely the delta, the theta, alpha, and the beta. So what is the purpose of these brain wave communications to all our cells in the body? Do you know? So, well, here it is. Homeostasis. Homeostasis, the meaning of homeostasis is balance. Our body must be balanced all the time, every second. Homeostasis, and this is the definition of homeostasis, is any self-regulating process by which an organism tends to maintain stability while adjusting to the conditions that are best for its survival. If homeostasis is successful, life continues. If it's unsuccessful, it results in a disaster or death of the organism. So here's a picture of, you've got the homeostasis here, input information sent along different paths to the control center. And this is the effector. Response of the effector feeds back to the influence magnitude and stimulus, and returns variable to homeostasis. So this is the effector and this is the receptor, and this must be balanced. So we've got effectors and receptors in our bodies, and they must be perfectly balanced. If they are out of balance, and we see it on the Elim graphs, we see the positive and negatives, and it changes all the time. It's not stable all the time. It changes. We are an organism, and an organism, the energy is changing all the time. But when there's a low energy and it keeps low in a certain area, say for instance in the liver or whatever organ, if it keeps on being low, what will happen is it will become a chronic situation, and a chronic situation will turn into disease, and then we have a big problem there. So the first step, that's why with the Elim, we can determine long before there's a problem, we can pick it up with a low energy. And it can be low because of different things, of your environment, of deficiencies in your body, of things that from outside or inside emotionally and things like that. We talk about the epigenetics. So that's the over and above our genetics that can change us. And there's a lot of things we have talked about that before. So the next thing, there are many factors that can affect our homeostasis. As we said, the environment, the epigenetic, and the most common places of homeostasis in the body is the blood glucose, very critical, blood oxygen, very critical, extracellular fluid, the pH. Extracellular is the fluids between our muscles and everywhere in our body between the cells. Plasma, ionized calcium, arterial blood pressure, the core body temperature, very critical, blood pressure, very critical, the volume of body water, very critical. All of these are very, very critical balance, homeostasis, extracellular sodium concentration, the extracellular potassium concentration, the blood partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide. And we can go on and on and on. Every organ, every system in our body must be balanced, and our brain is regulating. This is the master that regulates it. Actually, I think the heart is the master that regulates everything, but and it talks to the brain, and the brain then to the body. So it starts in the heart, goes to the brain, and from the brain, it's regulating all the hormones, all the neurotransmitters, all the temperature, blood levels, different cells in our body, the DNA, everything is organized in a wonderful way. And there's like a harmonious song in our body that is sung by all the organs in our body. It's like a symphony, and they must all sing the same tune, the same thing. They are orchestra, they're different instruments in that orchestra, but they must make, they mustn't go off the notes, out of balance. They must keep, and there's a hum in our cells of the music that it makes in our bodies. We are put together by sound and by music. So everything in our body, we can't hear it, is frequency. Frequency is sound, but you can't hear it because it's very, very low sound. It's without our hearing range, so we can't hear it, but it's ongoing in our body. Right, so, and that's what we measure with the elim. So this is the endocannabinoid system, in short, the ECS. This is part of a lipid signaling system comprising of cannabis-like ligands. A ligand is a key. So I'll explain to you now. And the ligand is, there's two types of ligands. Anandamide, so that's AEA, and 2AG, arachidonic acid. So that's the two ligands, two types of ligands. Now, I just want to explain in short, all our cells, all the trillions of our cells has got receptors. A receptor is like a little door into the cell. And the only one that can unlock the door is a ligand. So we also have lots of ligands. They are peptides in our bodily fluids, in our blood, and so on. And they swim and they bounce on the receptors, the little doors. And if they connect, they open that door, and then the right functions in the cell can happen. The generation and of a new cell, and the changing of the DNA in the nucleus of the cell. So there's these ligands bind with a specific receptor. So there's a specific receptors for specific ligands. So they are family of the G protein coupled receptors called CB1 and CB2. So cannabinoid receptor 1 is distributed in the following areas: in brain areas associated with motor control, that's movement, emotional responses, motivated behavior, energy homeostasis. In the periphery, The same receptor is expressed in the adipose tissue, the pancreas, the liver, the GI tract, skeletal muscles, heart, and the reproductive system. So it's mainly everything in our body is connected to this, has got this type of receptor on it. And it needs the ligand to open the doors so that the right thing can happen. CB2R is mainly expressed in our immune system. Its functions in endocannabinoids are synthesized and released upon demand in a receptor-dependent way. They act as a retrograde signaling messengers in the GABAergic and glutamatergic synapses, and as modulators. So glutamate is the most common amino acid in our body, and as modulators of post-synaptic transmission, interacting with the neurotransmitters. So it's actually CB1R and CB2R is the receptors on these cells right throughout our body. The ECS in the cannabinoid system is involved in various psychological conditions in central and peripheral tissues. It is implicated in the hormonal regulation of food intake. So it connects it to our vagus nerve. Cardiovascular, gastrointestinal, immune, behavioral, anti-proliferative, and mammalian reproduction functions. The ECS dysregulation has been correlated to obesity and metabolic syndrome pathogenesis. The CB1 blocker launched to treat cardiometabolic risk factors in obese and overweight patients. So what this says in short is that the endocannabinoid system is linked to problems with obesity. The CB1 is a blocker launched to treat cardiometabolic risk factors in obese and overweight patients. And this is a publication. This is where I got it. So you can go and check it out. There's another publication that says endocannabinoid system in food intake and metabolic regulation. The endocannabinoid system interacts with other genics and orogenics pathways to regulate food intake in the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus is in the center of our brain. The regulating of all the hormones comes from there, and the hedonistic value of food in the mesolimbic system. That's part of the parasympathetic and sympathetic system. The endocannabinoid system overactivity contributes to hepatic steatosis, so that's got to do with the liver, increased adipose tissue inflammation in our tissues, dysregulated insulin signaling in the pancreas, and disturbed oxidative waves in the skeletal muscle. The breakdown pathways of anandamide and the 2-arachidonoglycerol, the endocannabinoid receptor ligands are reviewed, and the recent discovery of endocannabinoid receptor polymorphisms and their relationship to obesity and a metabolic disease noted. So all the problems with the metabolism diseases comes from wrong signaling and from the brain, but the ECS system is a very integral part of this whole process. So we need this endocannabinoid system. It controls balance. If we can remember that, remember in short, it controls the balance in your body. The balance of everything, and balance is everything. So it's very important. It's a very important system, this. Okay, so, and this is where on the elam do we see that? In the delta brainwaves, the hypothalamus, pituitary, pineal gland. In the theta brainwaves, the restoration of cells, uptake of nutrients and antioxidants. In the alpha brainwaves, sympathetic and parasympathetic, neurovegetative, vagus nerve, metabolism. And this is the beta brainwaves, shows us the total energy of the body. So this is the place where we see it. So the main thing that we test with the elam is in the brain. So now I want to share 2 videos with you. That was the disaster last night. So I'm going to stop share of this one. And then we are going to share screen. Right, let me just get this up. Okay, give me a second. Right. With Dr. Josh X. So I'm sharing the screen. Where is he now? Okay, here it comes.
Dr. Josh Axe here, along with Dr. Jessica Knox and Dr. Rachel Knox. They are known as the Knox Docs, and they are experts and medical doctors on the endocannabinoid system. So we're going to talk about that right now. Specifically, what is the endocannabinoid system?
Yeah, so the endocannabinoid system is this amazing and fascinating, complex biochemical system inside of all vertebrate and invertebrate life. It's in perfect balance. We call that homeostasis. And at a very high level, we say it helps with eating, sleeping, relaxing, forgetting, and protecting inside of our bodies.
Wow, so it's pretty amazing. And I know one of the things that I know I've seen and read about is that it's connected to a lot of different areas of your body, a lot of different organ systems. So what are those organ systems, and how does the endocannabinoid system affect those?
Yeah, one of the primary systems that we always talk about the endocannabinoid system regulating is our nervous system. So our brain has a very high concentration of cannabinoid receptors, which are the little receptors that will interact with our endocannabinoids that our body makes itself, and also the exocannabinoids that come from our environment, whether that's from plants or herbs or spices or any number of things. So the central nervous system, obviously that's going to work on things like sleep. And that's one of the reasons that the endocannabinoid system is so powerful for people.
So talk to me about how, so this endocannabinoid system, how does that relate to of cannabinoids? What are the cannabinoids? And one of the things, just throwing these out there that I've read about is, I've read that there are cannabinoids in certain, or cannabinoid mimickers in certain foods or essential oils or other herbs out there. I know that's like 30 questions, but what are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, so there are cannabinoids, and then there's something called cannabinomimetic substances or practices even. One thing that fascinates me about the endocannabinoid system is that this is a personal belief, but I think it's finally the biologic physical model that validates classical ancient Chinese medicine and Ayurveda. And they've been using cannabinomimetic practices this whole time. Yoga, acupuncture, meditation, prayer, sleep. Those are cannabinomimetic practices that we can all do every single day that help tone that endocannabinoid system. So whether it's cannabis and the cannabinoids that come from it, or herbs and spices that have terpenes, or beta caryophyllene, we might get into a little later, that's in black pepper, but we actually think that's a cannabinoid. So my point is that these substances exist in nature and we can use them as supplementation, but we can also implement practices that to the endocannabinoid system too.
I love that. So tell me this: how do the different cannabinoids affect the endocannabinoid system? Everything from CBD to CBN, CBC, CBG, and even THC. How do those interact and affect that system differently?
Oh, that's a big question. So we'll start with the cannabis plant. And you already mentioned some of the major cannabinoids, which are THC and CBD, which certainly are the two that we have the most research and evidence on. And then there are lots of other, I mean, there's hundreds of other cannabinoids in the plant, and some of the major ones you mentioned, CBN, CBG, et cetera. So THC is a cannabinoid that actually works very much like one of our endocannabinoids that our body makes itself. That's called anandamide, or it's the bliss molecule. Both of those will work directly, meaning they will bind directly to a cannabinoid receptor. Whereas CBD works sort of indirectly. It won't bind a receptor directly, but it will sort of change the way that that receptor works with THC or works with our other endocannabinoids. So CBD is sort of like a gentler sort of modulator of the way that system works.
Okay. Yeah, it's really interesting because, one of the things that people, I think, a misconception they have is that they'll use the term that CBD is non-psychoactive and THC is, but that's false. I've read things that you guys have written on that. So explain to me about a little bit more about the CBD, THC, how they function differently in the body. And is CBD really non-psychoactive? And psychoactive might be a great thing, right?
Yeah. So CBD is very much psychoactive. And I like to bring everyone back to the definition of what psychoactivity is and what it means. And it's anything that changes brain function or mood or behavior. And CBD does all of those things. CBD, like all of the cannabinoids, is lipophilic, meaning it can cross fatty barriers like the blood-brain barrier, and therefore it can directly work on that central nervous system. And that's what CBD does. And some of the common reasons that we use CBD are psycho or neuromodulating. So I think by definition, CBD is psychoactive, just not in the same way that THC is. So I like to say CBD is non-euphoric or dysphoric, and it's non-intoxicating, while THC has the potential to be those things.
I love that. And that's a great, probably one of the best explanations I've ever heard on it as well. And we know that, there's lots of essential oils and things that have been used for thousands of years that have, maybe some of those similar, but we know lavender is relaxing. We know that clove with eugenol is very uplifting. And so that's a great explanation. So I want to say to everybody watching this, the endocannabinoid system is a powerful system, as the Knox docs here have talked about, that's connected to, number one, our brain and central nervous system, our guts, our different hormonal systems. And so I want to say thanks everybody for watching this, and check out more here about the Knox docs and more about what they do in teaching other doctors in the world about endocannabinology. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Thanks, guys. Hey, guys, Dr.
So we'll continue with this one.
Hello, Portland. Can you guys hear me? Hello, and hello everyone streaming. I know a few of you. Have you had your coffee? Are you ready? All right, good. So since you're already settled in your seats, I want you to lean in, because today I get to tell you a secret. And it's a secret that's been well kept for almost 30 years. And I want to start by sharing with you a quick story about a revolutionary named Jill. So let's watch.
Hello, my name is Jill, and I have Parkinson's disease. I'm taking my Parkinson's prescription medication this morning, and this is how it helps, and it doesn't. This is my oil, cannabis oil, and I'm just gonna spread it on the biscuit like that. It's been 20 minutes since I've had that butter in the biscuit, and I feel wonderful. No shakes, no nothing.
All right, so we're all happy Jill got better, right? But you're probably wondering, how is that possible? How is it possible that her well-researched, FDA-approved drugs aren't working for her, but something else is?
It's because there's a secret system in your body that no one is talking about. Now we know these systems really well, right? They're taught in every health, anatomy, and physiology class between elementary and high school and medical school. You guys know these? Yeah, we have our circulatory and our pulmonary systems, our skeletal and muscular systems, just to name a few. And we all know about our nervous system, which we once thought controlled them all. But today I'm going to talk to you about this system. It's a system totally unlike, supreme to, and in control of all the rest. And it was completely left out of every single medical textbook I read, despite its discovery 27 years ago. Right? I am not making this up. This is for real. So since it's not in the textbook, I'm going to share it with you today. I'm going to share with you the real science and the real history of this system and how you can use it to take control of your health. But before I do, I want to share my story. So when I was a kid, I wanted to become a doctor like my parents. But as medical school approached and my parents reflected on the changing medical field, my mom encouraged me to do something different with medicine. So I pursued a dual degree in medicine and business to become a doctor entrepreneur, because we entrepreneurs believe we can change the world with our ideas. And I wanted to become a world-changing doctor. Can't you tell? Yes, with that notion, I was eager and energized to learn. But what I learned deflated me. Because for me, the salient lesson from medical and business school was that big medicine is a big bureaucracy and paradoxical to health. It was a heavy, really weighty ethical dilemma that forced me to confront the dichotomy between wanting to become a healer, but becoming a drug pusher. I was training into a system pretty blasé and disinterested in addressing the root cause of disease and driven by patent medicine. This is not what I signed up for. And I was this close, literally, from walking away from medicine. But I found a family medicine program with an integrative medicine track, and that provided me a lens into ancient healing practices. Now we benefit tremendously from the advancing technologies and innovations of today's medicine. But what I found was that people used to be great at healing themselves and others, in doing so with natural substances and simple practices like herbs and acupuncture and yoga and meditation and more. This wasn't witchcraft or voodoo, right? It wasn't then and it's not today. These healers knew what worked and they had sound theories as to why. They just lacked the science. They lacked the biophysical model demonstrating how, and it was hidden in the secret system all along. Are you guys ready to know what it is? All right, so we're going to start with a word clue. Can anybody pronounce this word? Okay, well, let's do it together. So for the benefit of the group, let's sound it out. Ready? Endocannabinoid. Endocannabinoid. Endocan. Louder, Portland. Endocannabinoid. Endocan. Masterful. Yes, thank you. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, this secret system is what's known as the endocannabinoid system, or ECS for short. So if I say that, you know what I mean. And now we get to really nerd out as I explain what it is and how it works. So the endocannabinoid system resides within all animals except the insect. It's a 600 million-year-old messenger and receptor system integral to homeostasis, or the management of balance within your body. From embryonic development to immunosurveillance, there is not a single function in your bodies that is not somehow influenced or modulated by the ECS. You can think of it as a switchboard functioning in and across all physiologic processes, acting and reacting to internal and external stimuli to direct, correct, and overall manage your health. So although a gross simplification, the endocannabinoid system can be broken down into 4 core components. First up, we have the cannabinoid receptors, like CB1 and CB2 in counting. Next, we have the ligands that bind to those receptors and initiate an action called endocannabinoids, or body-made cannabinoids, like anandamide and 2-AG. And we have the synthesizing enzymes that make these endocannabinoids on demand when they're needed, and the degradative enzymes that break them down after they're used. And it works through something called retrograde signaling. So illustrated in this diagram is the route of an endocannabinoid that's made in a postsynaptic neuron in response to neurotransmitter stimulation. It then travels backwards or retrograde across the synapse, where it binds to a cannabinoid receptor on the presynaptic membrane to initiate an action, in this case, blocking the release of neurotransmitter. So let me break it down a little bit simpler. It's an analogy. Yeah. So let's say the endocannabinoid system is your dormitory or your apartment building, and your neighbor across the hall is making a lot of noise and they're getting really loud. You just walk across the hall and you politely ask them to turn the volume down. So you can imagine how important dysfunction is when cells are sending signals of stress, pain, or inflammation. Like your noisy neighbor, these processes need to be checked. And it's through this mechanism that the endocannabinoid system checks these processes back into balance so that your body can relax, remember to eat, fall asleep, forget traumatic experiences, and protect itself along with a host of other mediating and restorative processes. The endocannabinoid system keeps your body in balance. Now, up to now, you guys probably thought the brain was the boss, right? We all did, but the brain's not the boss. The endocannabinoid system is, and we had it wrong. So with all that said, you guys might be confused why this really awesome system was kept secret for so long. Well, I'd say that it probably has something to do with the plant that they used to discover it. So back in the 80s, researchers wanted to know how THC worked. And THC is a plant-made cannabinoid or phytocannabinoid found in cannabis. And it's responsible for the intoxicating and euphorogenic properties that cannabis is so infamous for. And using radio-tagged THC, the endocannabinoid system was discovered as THC locked into and unveiled this extensive receptor network concentrated throughout the brain and throughout the rest of the body. And THC did this because they found out it's a direct analog or mimicker of our own endocannabinoid anandamide. And as an aside, anandamide, also known as the bliss molecule, is what's really responsible for the runner's high, not endorphins, right? So if any of you have ever experienced the euphoria that's come with exercising, that's your endocannabinoid system, that's anandamide. And we're finding more each day about over 100 other phytocannabinoids found in cannabis and other plants that mimic our endocannabinoids and have the potential to supplement or modulate the endocannabinoid system in therapeutic and healing ways. So this is where we're at. We have this incredibly mind-blowing system, and we have this plant, y'all, a plant that works on this system in therapeutic and healing ways. So what I really hope you're wondering right now is what's wrong with that? All right, well, the answer lies within the annals of American medical history, starting with two guys who really wanted to sell a lot of prescription drugs. And in their heyday, at the turn of the 20th century, American medicine was based on homeopathy and herbal medicine, and naturopaths and chiropractors weren't getting down with patent drugs. So with the millions of dollars in their pocketbook, a document called the Flexner Report, and the full force of state governments, American medical training was consolidated and standardized in accordance with pharmaceutical drug science to the exclusion of holistic care practices, natural substances, and remedies in natural cures. And this created a system that made patentable pharmaceutical drugs that treated symptoms easy to sell, and that made natural holistic caring practices and unpatentable plant medicine like cannabis fringe, quackery, and illegal. What's surprising the most is that US physicians prescribed cannabis routinely to their patients well into the 20th century. Cannabis was once a top 3 most commonly prescribed medicines, dwindling out of use due to heavy taxation, the prosecution of the doctors who prescribed it, and finally, it being written out of the American Pharmacopoeia in 1942. You see, big business wrote my textbook. And I can only speculate that the endocannabinoid system was kept secret for so long because its science validated the use of unpatentable plant medicine like cannabis and other natural practices. But the pharmaceutical industry wasn't the only big business disrupting the once free market of health. We Americans spend multiples of billions of dollars annually on unhealthy and low quality foods, in addition to the prescription drugs we reflexively depend upon, both of which are directly linked to endocannabinoid system dysfunction, which we now know is the precipitant to most chronic diseases. And as a result, Americans are getting sicker and sicker, riding round and round on a Ferris wheel of big interests that we pay to ride. That doesn't make any sense.
We're outsourcing the responsibility of our health to the bigs, and they're cashing in at our expense. Staying on this ride is a losing battle. But this can be the path if we reimagine our future. And in this future, all we need is love. Yeah. But the type of love that I'm talking about is self-love. Because in the battle with the bigs, self-love is the revolution of one. Not until we start taking good care of ourselves do we opt out of the big business of disease. And the revolution of one is you choosing to live in balance, and the endocannabinoid system is your on-ramp. Now, as powerful and resilient as the endocannabinoid system is, it is not immune to aging or the assaults of modern living, like those unhealthy foods, and chronic use of prescription drugs, environmental pollutants and toxins, emotional stress, and how all of those things interplay on our genetics. Now, I just listed the top 5 contributors to ECS dysfunction and disease, and they should be avoided. But caring for yourself and your endocannabinoid system requires a bit of understanding of what nurtures it and what restores it. And here are your tools. Eat real food because it provides the body with what it needs for healthy cells and the raw materials for building those endocannabinoids. Supplement with adaptogenic herbs and spices because they soothe and tone the endocannabinoid system, aiding in balance restoration. Detox because it cleanses the body. It reduces inflammation and rids it of harmful toxins that abet endocannabinoid system dysfunction. Incorporate phytocannabinoids and cannabinoid practices. Phytocannabinoids like CBD and THC, when taken as whole plant cannabis, have shown helpful in diseases of endocannabinoid system dysfunction and wellness overall. And cannabinoid practices, I know that's another fancy word, like sleeping and exercise, yoga and meditation, deep breathing and prayer, soothe and tone the endocannabinoid system as though they were supplements themselves. And lastly, maintain healthy relationships. The effects of personal relationships across work, home, or social settings affect endocannabinoid system tone. And y'all create reasons to smile and hug often, because as it turns out, smiling and hugging part and parcel with healthy relationships triggers the release of your endocannabinoid anandamide, the bliss molecule. Now, as we're nearing the end of my talk, I know I've given you a mouthful of information and it might be a little overwhelming, but I really hope it piqued your curiosity and maybe sparked some inspiration as it did for me. And I and my family have been so compelled by the physiology of the endocannabinoid system and the care it requires that we're pioneering the nascent fields of endocannabinology and cannabinoid medicine with many other scientists and clinicians worldwide. This is our calling. And affecting systemic change with this system is what gets us up and going every morning. And we're not going to stop until this information is in the textbook. Are you with me, Portland? Right? I mean, this is life-changing information. Yes. So I encourage us all to learn from our past and reimagine our future with this system. Because the secret to balanced health resides in the science and total care of the endocannabinoid system. And I can tell you, like we tell our patients, that getting started is a lot simpler than you think. You just have to choose one. And you too can be a revolutionary like Jill. Thank you.
Okay, so we are back. And that was a wonderful presentation. And it's easy to understand. And I hope you've learned something today. So God bless you. And I'm going to post this now on our YouTube. Keep well. God bless.